Today we're looking at a game that's been sat in my library for a while. I used to use it to demo the Rift, because back when I was doing that, the first level was one of the best things on offer in the genre. I hold the franchise in high regard, so I felt like opting into the early access was the right thing to do. Though this came at a cost, Serious Sam VR The Last Hope was a rather large investment at £30. That's AAA money. After an update a few days ago, I decided to really get to grips with where it's at in its development cycle, as there are now 3 worlds to play with, and the addition of co-op mode. If you're a fan of Serious Sam, you'll understand its ability to penetrate deep into your psyche and stimulate something hidden that helps us modern day folks with our cloves and favourite coffee syrups and fucking roller skates to rise up and eviscerate our opposition for once, as nature intended, turning even the most basic of threats into scattered giblets and burning. Serious Sam was a beautiful baby, born from an era of PC gaming around the late 90s, early Y2K. High octane, FPS, bliss. And someone had to make that murder fest. And someone had to create the beheaded kamikaze.
Yourself!
So, The Last Hope aims to take all of the thrill of Serious Sam, its large arsenal of weapons, its gruff and buff protagonist, and its hordes of varied enemies, and allow you to experience all of that standing on a platform, free from the foibles of motion sickness. Pure gunplay. So I guess the gunplay needs to be pretty good then. How does it do? Well, first, a lot has changed from the start of the early access. When you boot up, you're met with a very simple, fairly intuitive menu. It's definitely improved over time, so I'm happy to just say it does the job.
Earth! Can't believe I'm back on Earth. HQ sent me to help some scientist called Dr. Stein dig up some tablets. Got ambushed. Had to teach him to respect archaeology.
You get little snippets from Sam in the background to let you know what you're in for. You're on a spaceship, but all of that science can fuck off. You've got a job to do. As it stands, you've got 3 worlds to play with. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what they each offer, because there's definitely been an evolution as they've been released. This does feel great, as playing it in early access, you're getting improved gameplay and choice every time. But you do end up in a situation where you're not really sure why the first levels wouldn't be better off with some of the improvements they added later. But we'll get back to that. The first planet you've got is Earth. Egypt, in fact, a very Serious Sam locale. The first stage of the first world is effectively a tutorial level. You start with just your little laser pistol, so things can only get so wild. Once you beat the level, you've earned yourself some money. In general, there are a few standout guns that really kick ass. The Tommy gun rocks when you're poor, and the assault rifle is an absolute beast at all times. You have the option to buy as much ammo as you want for each weapon you own. The devs have done something really nice in that you're encouraged to buy multiple weapons, as the ammo pickups you get will restore a fixed percentage of ammo across all of your guns. On the levels where you see a lot of these, you're absolutely better off buying multiple guns. You're going to need them. The first world sees you in some catacombs and some other Egypty locales. I was pleased to notice that they tweaked the enemies at least a little in the first worlds, as maybe they'll come back and make further changes if the latter worlds eclipse Egypt entirely. It all builds up to a final battle where you're charged by wave after wave of enemies. As it's the final level, you've got all the weaponry you could possibly hope for, so it's absolute carnage. And then you have to fight this guy. This is the only boss I'll outright show. I wouldn't want to take away from the spectacle of the other boss fights. Egypt is a fun place to be, which definitely hits you right in the nostalgia, straight out of the gate. It's worth mentioning here that it's pretty difficult too. For a first timer, there's a high chance you won't complete it first time on normal. You need to learn what weapons work, how to spend your money effectively, and how to prioritise your targets. It's a good first time difficulty. Hardest for people who want to feel some pain and get sweaty, and extrapolating from that, serious difficulty is for people with something to prove.
Who's your daddy?
The next world is Palladion. This one takes a bit of a different approach, with a greater number of ranged enemies and more diverse movement types. If it isn't clear from the footage, a big part of not dying is shooting the projectiles as they come at you. You can dodge them too apparently, but for the ones I tried to dodge, like the ones the hoverbots shoot at you, I didn't find it very effective. But I'm dealing with a play space size where I would quite easily run into a wall, so your mileage may vary. There's a nice balance where if you aren't dealing with the projectiles effectively and taking out the right targets, you'll end up spending so much time defending yourself that you get overwhelmed by the constantly spawning enemies. Palladion introduces a new weapon, the laser cannon, which, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely sucks. I can't figure out where it comes in handy, and there's no reason I can tell why it can't be added to the first world, except maybe some canonical one I'm not seeing. There are more pronounced mini-bosses in this world, and the difficulty ramps up noticeably. This level here was pretty fucking hard, and was definitely one of my favourites to figure out. Definitely looking forward to revisiting this on a harder difficulty. Also, your platform moves with you on the final level, which was really nice, and is definitely something that allows for more dynamic encounters, and a more fleshed out feeling experience. Palladion actually reminded me of Time Crisis, with all the soldiers ducking for cover, and oh man, I would love to see some Time Crisis in VR. Whilst the difficulty increases in some ways, the boss of this world was the weakest so far. Let's just say that the concept is a bit nebulous. That's a bad joke. You'll understand if you play it. Next up we have Shanty. The most recently released world introduces a few new toys. A sniper rifle, a shield ability, and a sword. I was really surprised by the aesthetic they went with on this one. There's a tutorial to get to grips with the sword and sniper. They're both cool weapons, if a bit fiddly. The sniper requires you to grab it with your other hand to aim, which is great, but you also now start using another button to bring up the shield. This is pretty important when sniping, as it's a slower process to aim when compared to your other tools. You can just wield it like a pistol and have decent accuracy. I'm not sure whether that's ever more efficient, but it's definitely less fun. Then there's the sword. Got mixed feelings here. The first use is as a melee weapon that bypasses things like shields, which will waste some of your ammo if you let them. But I spent way too long trying to figure out the blade beam ability, despite the game telling me what to do. You take a swipe and make a beam. It's pretty cool, and it's actually the main use of the sword. The issue is that the beam originates from your hilt. It doesn't matter if you print that in big bold letters on my screen. It goes against every bit of intuition you'd have about shooting a beam from your sword. You get unlimited ammo, and it's a bit spammy. I enjoyed swinging my hands around, but without trying to be cheesy, I had two swords out, swinging left and right, with the tips of the blades pointed at the ceiling, or poking over my shoulder. It wasn't quite there as far as immersion goes, but it was fun. It became less about wielding the sword though, and more about enjoying killing the evil sky bastards, who are probably the most attention-demanding common enemy.
Is this the Temple of Peace? Doesn't seem very peaceful.
I enjoyed using the sword in the context of this world, but I do hope it's omitted or changed for future worlds. I'd suggest patching it so that it has to charge, meaning it's a high-risk, high-reward weapon that encourages precision. I didn't use it very much in the final level though, so I can't say it polarised my choices very much. It's just a bit weird. Shanty was probably my favourite world. I died I think only once from a non-boss level, but the boss took me a good chunk of tries to beat, coming in at about 50 minutes of gameplay all inclusive. Despite the few gripes I had with it, it was just good honest fun, and in the end really sold me on the last hope. The last level involves another moving platform, but this time you're drifting through the sky. I'll say no more. If you bought the game and have been waiting for it to get really good, get back on it. It's there. Next up I had to try the multiplayer. Given the difficulty and pseudo-strategy involved in beating a level, this game is actually really well suited to co-op. However, the current lack of a lobby system is pretty gross. I fully expect for a nice way to boot up the game and invite your friends to exist in future, but it's not there yet. Still, I had a good time playing the multiplayer with an old friend. Here's a few highlights, then I'll talk about it quickly.
Oh shit, you're fucking crushing it, man.
Good luck. Grab your guns. Why do these aliens hate archaeologists
Anyone who tells me
so
I'm crushing
much?
it, I want to be around.
Oh god. That's
Why
why
I think they got like a serious hate boner for you.
Oh shit, shit.
Ah god.
Alright, I got 5 seconds.
I can't do it, man. I can't. There's too much.
Oh my god.
Whoops. Ah yeah, I died. Alright, okay, we can't do that on hard. But the first part is the hardest part. You just like let on the floor on your back. Come on, we're almost done. Ah, I'm dead. Nah. 8 seconds. Oh god.
Ah, damn it.
Whoa!
6.
What
Alright, 5
the
seconds.
fuck, man?
So, as you can see, it's pretty janky. Co-op doesn't come as default on the new world. It'll be along shortly as an update. Personally, I'd say this is a good sign. Co-op needs to be seamless and balanced. You can expect twice the mayhem, but it's not just twice the enemies on screen, which makes it more satisfying to go from single player to multiplayer on a given world. It needs work, but I can absolutely see myself and a friend dedicating an evening to taking down a world on hard or serious difficulty. It was good enough that I went from being excited to play the same worlds on harder difficulties on my own, to really wanting to tackle the harder difficulties with a friend, so we can coordinate weapons and targets. I think there's enough complexity to warrant it. Hopefully I can continue to cover The Last Hope and share that experience. Compared to where it was on release, The Last Hope has come a hell of a long way, and I can only hope the devs give it the full amount of love that it deserves. It really becomes a spectacle, and it even feels a bit of an adventure at times. Something that's very hard to elicit from a wave shooter. Across the board, I think they need to be careful to make sure they mix up the sight lines in the levels and create more clever ways for the enemies to sneak up on you, but still be reactable by sight or sound. For example, sticking ramps near the front of the level that the enemies could charge up from. All the same idea with beetle dudes and burrows. At the moment it feels like generally enemies pour in from the middle distance, maybe a bit too much. But this element of the level design has absolutely gotten better as more content's been released. It'd be nice if we could get some more content per world, either slightly longer levels or additional ones. I also think they really need to continue to incorporate platform movement so that the set pieces feel a bit less static, and I think projecting forward at the moment the total amount of content might not quite justify the price tag. As it stands, The Last Hope is clearly not a cynical cash-in. Real thought has gone into making a simple gameplay mechanic have longevity. I only hope that they can continue to up the ante, because I had a blast, and I'm looking forward to more. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that shit, and hopefully I'll see you next time.